The Varnak Dominion's war fleet emerged from the void like a storm of steel and fire, its sleek, jagged-hulled warships bristling with weapons that had reduced entire star systems to ash. Their technology was a marvel of ruthless efficiency, shields that defied conventional logic, engines capable of near-instantaneous jumps across the stars, and armaments that could reduce a planet's surface to molten ruin. At the heart of this armada stood Commander Kale Drax, a towering figure clad in the obsidian armor of the Dominion's elite war caste. His gaze, cold and unyielding, swept across the holographic display of the approaching system. Earth, a world deemed primitive and ripe for conquest, lay just beyond the final jump point. Drax had no reason to doubt the intelligence reports. The humans were a scattered, undisciplined species, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their wars fought with crude weapons and chaotic tactics. The Dominion had crushed civilizations far more advanced than this one, and Earth was no exception. His orders were clear: subjugate the planet, strip its resources, and ensure that no resistance remained. The fleet had been dispatched with overwhelming force, and Drax had no intention of leaving without a decisive victory. Yet, as the fleet neared the system, an unfamiliar sensation gnawed at the edges of his mind. The Dominion's warships had never failed him, their dominance unquestionable. But something about the silence of Earth's orbital defenses unsettled him. No distress signals, no desperate transmissions from the planet's leadership. Only empty space stretched before them, as if the humans had already accepted their fate. He dismissed the thought. Fear was a weakness, and the Dominion did not tolerate weakness. Prepare to establish contact with Earth's leadership, Drax ordered, his voice a low growl over the bridge's intercom. They will have the opportunity to surrender before we unleash the full might of the fleet. The lieutenant at the communications console hesitated before responding. Commander, we're picking up no transmissions from the planet. No signs of organized resistance. Drax's fingers tightened around the railing. Then they are either fools or cowards. Either way, they will fall. A transmission crackled to life on the bridge, interrupting his thoughts. The image of a weathered alien appeared on the screen, his body scarred by battle, his left eye a dull, lifeless void. His voice was rough, edged with something Drax had not heard in centuries: fear. Are you the new commander? The alien rasped. I have seen what your kind brings to a world. I have seen the fire that follows your fleets. Drax narrowed his eyes. State your purpose. Why do you interfere? The alien's expression darkened. Because I know what awaits you. I have fought them before, and I have lost. A scoff escaped Drax's lips. You speak of weakness. The humans are nothing. They will not withstand the Dominion. The alien's good eye burned with something unreadable. You are wrong, and if you do not turn back, you will learn that truth in blood. Before Drax could respond, the transmission cut off. He exhaled sharply, shaking off the lingering unease. The humans were nothing more than another conquered world, waiting to be claimed. And he would be the one to deliver the final blow. Drax turned away from the fading transmission, his jaw clenched in frustration. The alien's words were nonsense, fear spoken by a creature broken by past failures. The Varnak Dominion did not fall to primitive species. They had crushed civilizations with superior technology, withstanding relentless assaults that would have broken lesser fleets. And yet, the alien's warning lingered in his mind like a shadow he could not dispel. Resume course, Drax ordered, his voice sharp. We will not let the ramblings of a defeated coward dictate our actions. The lieutenant hesitated before responding. Commander, we are approaching the outer perimeter of Earth's system. Should we still dispatch the scouts? Drax's gaze flickered to the dark void beyond the viewport. The humans had not responded to their approach, nor had they attempted to flee. It was possible they were already in disarray, their leaders paralyzed by the sheer scale of the Dominion's arrival. If that was the case, then the scouts would find little more than a fractured world ripe for conquest. Yes, he said at last. 3 stealth cruisers will enter Earth's orbit undetected. Let them assess the planet's defenses before we commit the full fleet. The scouts launched, their sleek forms vanishing into the void as their cloaking fields activated. Drax watched from the bridge as they disappeared, his mind already turning to the inevitable victory. The humans were primitive, their technology inferior, and their strategy unpredictable and reckless. The Dominion would crush them effortlessly. But then the first anomaly occurred. One of the cruiser's energy signatures flared and vanished from the display. A moment later, the second followed. The remaining vessel attempted to break formation, its evasive maneuvers erratic and uncoordinated. Drax's pulse quickened. He had seen no weapons fire, no indication of an ambush. The cruisers had simply ceased to exist. "Report," he barked. The lieutenant's voice was strained, his fingers flying over his console. "We've lost contact with all 3 scouts. No distress signals, no wreckage, nothing. It's as if they were erased." A cold weight settled in Drax's stomach. He forced himself to remain composed, but the unease that had been gnawing at him now surged to the forefront. He had expected resistance, but not this. Not a silence so absolute it felt like a trap. "Deploy a recon probe," he commanded. "I want visual confirmation of what happened." The probe launched, its sensors sweeping the area where the scouts had last been detected. Data streamed in, faint, distorted, but undeniable. The moment the probe neared the wreckage, a burst of energy erupted from the planet's surface, and the feed cut out. The Dominion systems had been compromised. The humans had not only detected the scouts but had neutralized them before they could send a single report. Drax's hands gripped the railing so tightly that the metal groaned under his strength. His mind raced through the implications. How had they known? How had they bypassed the Dominion shielding? And why had they remained hidden, waiting in silence until the scouts were already within their grasp? A single, undeniable thought settled in his mind. This was not a primitive species. This was not a chaotic, undisciplined enemy. This was something else. Something dangerous. And they had been waiting for him. The silence that followed the destruction of the Dominion scouts was deafening. Drax's bridge was frozen in uncertainty, officers exchanging uneasy glances as they attempted to re-establish contact with the missing vessels. But before they could react, a new transmission broke through, crude, distorted, and unmistakably human. "We saw you coming," the message played, its voice calm, almost mocking. "We heard your fleet before it even reached the system. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready?" The screen flickered, displaying a montage of intercepted Dominion communications, orders, fleet positioning, battle strategies, scrambled and retransmitted back in a chaotic loop. The humans had not only detected the scouts, they had infiltrated the Dominion's networks, rewriting their transmissions, feeding them false data, and turning their own technology against them. Drax's mind reeled. The Dominion's encryption was impenetrable, or so they had believed. The humans had not only broken through their defenses, but had done so without detection. They had been watching, listening, and waiting, while the Dominion had assumed them blind and helpless. "Shut it down," he growled. "Cut all open channels and isolate the mainframe." The lieutenant scrambled to comply, but the damage was already done. The fleet's targeting systems flickered erratically, their coordinates shifting as if guided by unseen hands. Then, the unthinkable happened. The Dominion's own weapons turned against them. A war cruiser's primary cannons fired without command, unleashing a barrage that tore through one of its own frigates. The blast was immediate, reducing the smaller ship to a fireball that expanded in the vacuum of space. Another vessel's engines roared to life, sending it careening into an adjacent destroyer before either crew could react. The Dominion's formation, once a symbol of unbreakable order, was unraveling before their very eyes. Drax's fists clenched at his sides. Override the systems, manually. The bridge erupted into motion, officers desperately attempting to wrest control from the unseen force that had seized their command structure. But the humans had already taken too firm a grip. The Dominion's fleet was no longer operating under their control. Then, the final blow came. A wave of small, unassuming craft burst from Earth's surface. Human fighters, outdated and seemingly inferior. But they moved with terrifying precision, weaving through the Dominion's chaos like hunters in a slaughter. They did not engage in direct combat. Instead, they deployed swarms of metallic drones that latched onto the hulls of the warships, burrowing through armor, plating, and disrupting critical systems. The Dominion's ships convulsed as their reactors destabilized, their shielding flickering and failing in rapid succession. Explosions rippled through the fleet, ships colliding with one another in the confusion, their once mighty formation collapsing into a graveyard of fire and wreckage. Drax's breath came short as he watched the devastation unfold. His flagship systems were failing, engines offline, weapons unresponsive, communications compromised. He had underestimated the humans. He had assumed they would cower in fear, that they would be easy prey. But they had struck with a strategy unlike anything he had ever seen. The final scout vessel, still transmitting before its destruction, sent one last burst of data. A single phrase, encoded in Dominion's own language, played over the bridge's speakers. "You wanted war. You found a war you cannot win." Drax's blood ran cold. The humans had not only prepared for his arrival, they had been waiting for it. They had anticipated his every move, turned his fleet's strength against itself, and now they were dismantling the Dominion's power one ship at a time. The old alien's warning echoed in his mind. They make you believe you're winning right up until the moment they pull the ground from under your feet. And now, Drax stood on that very precipice, watching as his fleet crumbled. Drax's mind raced as he forced himself to remain standing amidst the chaos. The Dominion's warships were unraveling, their systems failing one by one. He had expected resistance, perhaps even a final, desperate act of defiance. But this was something else. The humans had not only neutralized the scouts, they had turned the Dominion's own technology against them, orchestrating a collapse that was as swift as it was merciless. "Commander." The lieutenant's voice was strained, his hands trembling over the console. "We're picking up another transmission. It's the same alien who warned us before." Drax turned sharply. "Put it through." The holographic screen flickered, and the scarred, one-eyed alien appeared once more. His expression was unreadable, his posture rigid as if he carried the weight of past failures on his shoulders. "I told you," the alien said, his voice devoid of triumph, only sorrow. "They do not fight like you or me. They do not abide by strategy. They dismantle you piece by piece, and they do not stop until you are nothing." Drax's jaw tightened. "You survived their war. How?" The alien exhaled slowly, the sound distorted by the transmission. "I did not survive. I fled. I watched my fleet burn, and I ran. I thought I could escape them, but they found me. Every ship I tried to hide in, every world I sought refuge on, they always found me. You think you are the hunters, but you are already prey." Drax's hands curled into fists. "You are a coward. You let fear break you." The alien's good eye burned with something Drax had not expected. Pity. "Fear is what keeps you alive long enough to understand your enemy. You gave them time to prepare, and now you are paying the price." Drax's mind reeled. The Dominion's forces had been compromised. Their weapons had turned against them, their fleet's cohesion shattered. The humans had not just ambushed them, they had orchestrated a complete breakdown of the Dominion's command structure. And now, they were broadcasting their message across every available channel. The screen shifted, displaying a new transmission from Earth. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of an unshakable truth. "You came to conquer. You found something you cannot defeat." Drax's breath came in shallow, sharp bursts. He had always believed the Dominion's technological superiority made them untouchable, but the humans had proven otherwise. They had infiltrated the Dominion systems before they even entered orbit. They had listened, they had watched, and they had struck before the fleet could react. His flagship shuddered, alarms blaring as the automated systems struggled to compensate for the damage. His officers shouted orders, but nothing was working. The Dominion's mighty warships were falling, one by one, into the void. Drax forced himself to his feet. his voice sharp despite the failing lights around him. "Shut down the mainframe, manually. We will not let this species dictate our fate." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The Dominion had already lost. Drax's flagship drifted in the void, a shattered husk of what had once been an unstoppable force. The Dominion's fleet had been reduced to burning wreckage, its mighty warships torn apart by an enemy that should not have been able to challenge them. The humans had not only won, they had humiliated the Dominion, dismantling its forces with precision and ruthless efficiency. Drax's breath was ragged as he forced himself upright, his body aching from the impact of the explosion that had torn through the bridge. He surveyed the damage, consoles cracked, wires sparking, officers either unconscious or dead. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. They had conquered through overwhelming force, through sheer dominance. But the humans had not fought like that. They had not engaged in direct confrontation. They had turned the Dominion's own systems against them, striking before the fleet even had a chance to react. A flicker of movement caught his eye. The screen, barely functioning, displayed a final transmission from Earth. The same cold, unflinching voice spoke once more. "You thought we were primitive. You thought we were weak. But we have been preparing for centuries. For every war you wage, we will be ready." Drax clenched his jaw. The humans were broadcasting their victory across the system, and likely beyond. They were sending a message, not just to the Dominion, but to the entire galaxy. They had taken down one of the most feared war machines in the stars, and they were not hiding it. They were broadcasting it, ensuring that every listening faction, every rival empire, and every warlord in the void knew that the Dominion had fallen. The realization hit him like a hammer. They were not just defending their world. They were making a statement. The Dominion had been a symbol of invincibility, an empire that crushed all who opposed it. But now, that symbol had been shattered, and the humans had ensured that the galaxy would know it. Drax's mind raced through the implications. The Dominion would not accept this defeat. The warlords of the core worlds would see this as an insult, a wound that could only be healed by total annihilation. They would not stop with Earth. They would send more. But the humans had already proven that they were not defenseless. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp, metallic hiss as the emergency oxygen system activated, bathing the bridge in dim red light. A groan from his side drew his attention. A few officers had survived the destruction, though barely. He needed to move, to regroup, to salvage something from this disaster. Then, the screen flickered again. The alien who had warned him stood there, his expression weary but resolute. "You see now," the alien said, his voice low. "You thought the humans were primitive, chaotic, but they are not like us. They do not fight for conquest. They fight to survive, and when survival is at stake, they have no limits." Drax's hands trembled. "They will not stand against the Dominion again. We will return with greater force, with more ships." The alien's gaze hardened. "And they will be waiting." Drax's mind reeled. He had spent his life believing in the Dominion's supremacy. He had crushed civilizations that resisted and broken planets that defied them. And yet, here he was, on the verge of death, watching the empires might crumble before a species the Dominion had dismissed as unworthy. The alien's transmission cut off, leaving only the flickering wreckage on the screen. Drax's hands tightened into fists. The war was far from over. The Dominion would return, and when they did, they would not underestimate the humans again. But as he looked at the ruins of his fleet, at the destruction wrought by an enemy he had never truly understood, he knew one thing with certainty. Earth had made a declaration, and the galaxy was listening. As the Dominion's wreckage drifted in the void, Earth's leaders gathered to assess the aftermath of the battle. Commander Elias Voss, hardened by years of conflict and survival, stood at the heart of the underground war room, his gaze fixed on the holographic display showing the remnants of the enemy fleet. Around him, officers and strategists from across the planet worked feverishly, compiling intelligence, coordinating repair efforts, and preparing for the inevitable retaliation. But even as the immediate threat receded, the larger war was just beginning. The humans had proven themselves capable of repelling a superior force, But they were not naive. The Dominion would not forget this humiliation. They would return, and when they did, they would come with everything they had left. The only way to survive was not just to prepare for defense, but to strike first, to rally the oppressed, to turn the galaxy's scattered resistance into a unified force strong enough to challenge the Dominion's rule. The first signs of this new alliance came from the outer systems. The Syrak Collective, a coalition of species long subjugated by the Dominion, had intercepted Earth's transmission. Unlike the humans, they had never dared to rise openly, fearing the Dominion's wrath. But now, emboldened by Earth's victory, they reached out. Their leader, Ambassador Tharn of the Syrak, appeared on the war room's main screen, his violet skin shimmering under the dim light. "Commander Voss," Tharn spoke, his voice calm but charged with urgency. "Your people have done what no other civilization has managed. You have broken the Dominion's image of invincibility. We have suffered under their rule for centuries, but now we have a chance to change that. We offer our allegiance. We will fight alongside you." Voss exchanged a glance with Colonel Kade, the head of Earth's Cyber Defense Division. She had been instrumental in the battle, her expertise in infiltration and sabotage proving invaluable against the Dominion systems. She gave a small nod. "We appreciate your offer, Ambassador," Voss responded, his tone measured. "But we must be clear. Earth's priority is its own survival. We cannot afford to spread our forces too thin." Tharn's expression did not waver. "We do not ask you to fight our wars. We ask to fight yours. The Dominion will not stop at Earth. They will seek vengeance, and when they come, they will bring every fleet they have left. If we do not stand together, we will fall alone." It was a truth Voss could not ignore. The humans had survived because they had adapted, because they had used every tool at their disposal to turn the Dominion's strength against them. But now, they had the chance to do more than just defend. They had the chance to strike at the heart of the Dominion's rule. The Syrak were not the only ones reaching out. The Tharn Enclave, a feline-like species known for their guerrilla warfare and sabotage tactics, had also sent a transmission. Their leader, Chieftain Varnak, his fur bristling with barely restrained aggression, spoke with a growl in his voice. "We have watched the Dominion crush entire worlds. We have lived as exiles, hunted by their fleets. And now, we see Earth standing tall. If you are willing to take the fight to them, we will lend our claws and our fire." Kade stepped forward, her eyes gleaming. "If we're going to take the battle to the Dominion, we'll need every advantage we can get. The Tharn's infiltration tactics, the Syrak's energy shielding, these are things we can use to our benefit." Voss exhaled slowly, his mind already turning to the implications of what they were about to do. The humans had spent centuries surviving, adapting, and defending their world. But now, they had the chance to shift the balance of power. The Dominion had underestimated them once. If they could strike before the Empire regrouped, they might be able to cripple it before it could retaliate. The war room buzzed with renewed purpose as Earth's leaders began integrating the Syrak and Tharn forces into their own. The Syrak brought with them advanced energy web shielding, a technology that could disrupt the Dominion's targeting systems. The Tharn contributed their fleet of agile assault cruisers, designed for hit-and-run attacks that would tear through the Dominion's weakened formations. Voss knew the next battle would not be fought in Earth's orbit. It would be waged at the very heart of the Dominion's power. And for the first time in history, humanity would not be fighting alone. The Varnak Dominion did not waste time. Within days of their crushing defeat in Earth's orbit, they regrouped with terrifying speed, mobilizing reinforcements from their core worlds. The new fleet was monstrous, a wall of warships stretching across the void, their hulls bristling with weapons designed for annihilation. This was not a force meant to conquer. It was a force meant to erase. Commander Elias Voss stood in the war room, his hands gripping the edge of the tactical display as the latest intelligence streamed in. The Dominion had learned from their previous failure. Their fleet was no longer scattered. It was a singular, overwhelming force with the command flagship at its heart. If Earth was to survive, they would need to strike before the Dominion could reach them. "We don't have time to wait," Voss said, his voice sharp. "If we let them reach Earth, they'll tear through our defenses. We hit them first, right at the core. Kade, seated at the console, nodded. We intercepted their battle plans from the wreckage of the last fleet. They're using a centralized command AI to coordinate their entire force. If we can shut it down, their fleet will fall apart. Voss exhaled slowly. How do we get to the flagship? Kade's lips curled into a smirk. We use what they left behind. She tapped a command and the screen flickered to show a captured Dominion escape pod, one of the few that had survived the last battle. The humans had studied it, stripped it down, and modified it with signal scramblers, stealth systems, and a virus capable of crippling the Dominion's AI. The plan was simple: infiltrate the flagship, deploy the virus, and watch the entire fleet collapse from within. But it was not a mission for just anyone. I'll do it, Kade said before Voss could even speak. His head snapped toward her. You're the only one who understands the virus. If anything goes wrong, I'm the only one who can make sure it doesn't, she interrupted. I designed half of this damn thing. I know how to adapt if something goes off script, and I'm the best pilot you've got. Voss hesitated. He knew she was right, but that did not make the idea any less dangerous. The Dominion would not make the same mistakes twice. Their flagship would be heavily shielded, its systems reinforced against infiltration. And yet, Kade's confidence was unwavering. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. Do it. The final hours before the Dominion's arrival were a blur of frantic preparation. Earth's forces, bolstered by the Syrak and Tharn, moved into position. Decoy drones were launched, their energy signatures mimicking capital ships, drawing the Dominion's attention to the far side of the planet. The Syrak's energy web shielding was deployed, creating false readings that would confuse the Dominion's targeting systems. The Tharn assault cruisers were positioned in the upper atmosphere, ready to strike the moment the enemy committed to their assault. And Kade's modified escape pod was prepped for launch. She stood in the hangar bay, her hands moving over the console with practiced efficiency. The virus was ready. The stealth systems were online. The escape pod was no longer a vessel of retreat, it was a weapon of precision. Voss approached, his expression unreadable. You don't have to do this. Kade smirked. I do, and you know it. He exhaled, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. Make it back. She met his gaze. I'm not dying today. I've got too much left to prove. With a final nod, she stepped into the pod. The hatch sealed behind her, and the launch bay doors hissed open. The pod shot into the void, its stealth systems engaging instantly. Then, the Dominion arrived. Their fleet dropped out of FTL in a single overwhelming formation. The command flagship at the center, surrounded by escorts. The Warbringer fleet had learned from its previous mistake. There would be no scattering, no overconfidence. They were here to end Earth once and for all. Voss stood on the command deck, watching the Dominion's forces advance. All units, hold position, let them commit. The Dominion's warships opened fire, their weapons tearing through the decoy drones, believing them to be Earth's primary fleet. They were falling for the trap. Then Kade's voice crackled over the comms. Pod secure. Virus upload in progress. Voss's breath caught. She had made it. The moment stretched unbearably. The Dominion continued their assault, unaware that their command AI was already under siege. Then, abruptly, the flagship's movements became erratic. Its weapons fired at random, striking its own escorts. The formation collapsed, ships colliding, their coordination shattered. Voss seized the moment. All units, engage, hit them while they're disorganized. The Allied fleet surged forward. The Syrak's energy web shielding disrupted the Dominion's targeting systems, causing their weapons to misfire. The Tharn fighters tore through the crippled ships, their agility making them deadly in the chaos. Earth's orbital cannons unleashed kinetic barrages, striking key Dominion vessels before they could recover. The Dominion's flagship, its AI now a mangled, corrupted mess, became a liability. It fired blindly, its engines sputtering as the virus spread through its core systems. Then, in a final devastating strike, a railgun slug from Earth's orbital defenses tore through its command bridge. The massive warship convulsed, its shields failing, and in a blinding explosion, it was gone. The remaining Dominion forces, leaderless and in disarray, scrambled to retreat. But the Allied fleet did not let them escape. The Tharn intercepted the fleeing ships, their plasma turrets carving through the wreckage. The Syrak's energy web spread, ensnaring those that attempted to flee, ensuring they could not escape the void. The battle was over. Voss stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as the last Dominion ship vanished into the dark. The war room erupted in cheers, but he barely heard them. His mind was still on Kade, still waiting for her signal. Then, at last, her voice returned. "Pod pinged for retrieval. I made it back." Relief surged through him. "Bring her aboard." As the escape pod was hauled back into the hangar, Voss allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. The Dominion had been broken. Their fleet was in ruins. Their empire had suffered a wound it could not ignore. And Earth had proven that humanity was no longer prey. They were the hunters now. The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. The once mighty Varnak Dominion, an empire built on the unshakable belief in its own supremacy, had suffered a catastrophic defeat. The remnants of their fleet, leaderless and crippled, fled into the void, their retreat a silent admission of their failure. The destruction of their flagship had sent shockwaves through their command structure, severing the AI that had coordinated their warships with unerring precision. Without it, the Dominion's forces were nothing more than scattered wreckage, their once invincible war machines reduced to floating debris. But for Earth, the battle was not just a victory, it was a declaration. The humans had not only defended their world, they had shattered the Dominion's myth of invincibility and broadcast their triumph across the stars. The message had been clear. Earth was no longer vulnerable. The galaxy had seen the Dominion crush entire civilizations with overwhelming force, and had watched them burn planets to ash without resistance. And yet, a species they had dismissed as primitive had not only survived, but had turned the tide against them. Across the stars, the oppressed saw their chance. The Syrak collective, long subjugated by the Dominion's iron grip, was the first to act. Their transmissions spread like wildfire, carrying news of Earth's victory to every listening post and rebel stronghold. The Tharn enclave, once exiles hunted by the Dominion's fleets, rallied their warriors, their claws sharpened with the promise of vengeance. Dozens of other species, previously resigned to their fate under the Dominion's rule, now saw the possibility of freedom. Uprisings erupted on distant worlds, their leaders seizing the moment to strike at Dominion outposts, to dismantle the Empire's control before it could regroup. The Dominion, for all its might, had no precedent for this. Their entire military doctrine was built on the idea that no enemy could match them in direct combat. But Earth had not fought like the Dominion did. They had not relied on brute force alone. They had used deception, infiltration, and sabotage, weapons the Dominion had never learned to defend against. And now, the empire that had ruled through fear and conquest was crumbling from within. On Earth, Commander Elias Voss stood in the war room, his gaze fixed on the holographic map displaying the Dominion's collapsing territories. Reports streamed in from across the galaxy. Dominion outposts overrun, planetary governors declaring independence, entire fleets defecting from the war machine that had once commanded them. The Dominion's grip was slipping, and the humans had been the spark that set it free. Colonel Kade entered, her usual smirk tempered by exhaustion. "Are you seeing this?" she asked, tapping the console. "Their core worlds are in chaos. The noble houses are turning on each other. They're tearing themselves apart." Voss exhaled, his shoulders heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. "We gave them something they hadn't had in centuries," he murmured. "Hope." Kade crossed her arms. "And they're using it. The Dominion's been the big bad for so long that no one thought to fight back. But now they know it's possible." The implications were staggering. The Dominion had ruled through fear, through the belief that resistance was futile. But Earth had shattered that illusion. The humans had not just survived, they had proven that the Dominion could be broken. And now, every species that had suffered under their rule was rising. Voss knew the war was not over. The Dominion would not collapse overnight. Their forces were vast, their reach spanning the stars. But their enemies were no longer scattered. They were no longer alone. A new signal flickered on the console. Ambassador Thalen of the Syrak. His holographic form materialized, his violet skin glowing under the dim light of the war room. His expression was grim, but his voice carried a note of determination. "Commander Voss," Thalen said, his tone steady. "The Syrak, the Tharn, and several other factions have convened. We propose a unified defense network, a coalition of species that will stand together against the Dominion. Earth is at the heart of this alliance. Your victory has made you the symbol of resistance." Voss met the ambassador's gaze. "And what do you propose?" Thalen's eyes burned with conviction. "We strike before the Dominion can regroup. We take the battle to them. We dismantle their empire before they can rebuild their strength." The war room fell into a tense silence. The idea was bold, reckless even. The Dominion was still an immense force, and they would not fall easily. But Voss knew one thing. They had already won the war of perception. The Dominion had been the galaxy's most feared power, an empire that crushed all opposition before it could rise. But now, the galaxy knew the truth. The Dominion could be defeated. The humans had done it twice. And if they were willing to lead this fight, if they could unite the scattered resistance into a single, unbreakable force, then the Dominion would not recover. Voss straightened, his voice firm. "Then we strike." The war room erupted into motion. The Allied resistance was no longer just a collection of species fighting for survival. It was a war machine of its own, forged in the fires of Earth's defiance. The Dominion had underestimated humanity once. Now they would learn the cost of their arrogance. The shattered remnants of the Warbringer fleet had barely vanished into the void when the first overtures of alliance arrived. Across the galaxy, the once subjugated species that had long lived in fear of the Dominion's iron grip now saw the cracks in their oppressors' armor. The humans had not only defended their world, they had crippled the Dominion's most elite warships, proving that no empire was untouchable. And now, the oppressed were ready to fight back. Commander Elias Voss stood in the newly established Earth Command Center, his gaze sweeping across the array of holographic projections that flickered to life. The Syrak Collective, the Tharn Enclave, the Ilari Concord, and the Virix Remnant had all sent emissaries, their messages filled with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and something else, urgency. The Dominion would not sit idle after such a devastating loss. Their core worlds were already in turmoil, their noble houses turning on one another in the wake of their military's failure. But the warlords who remained in power would not let Earth's defiance stand. The next fleet they sent would not be a mere invasion force. It would be an extermination. Ambassador Thalen of the Syrak was the first to speak, his violet skin shimmering under the dim light of the command center. "Commander Voss, the time for scattered resistance is over. The Dominion has ruled through fear, through the belief that no force could stand against them. But you have changed that. You have given the galaxy a reason to rise." Voss exhaled slowly. He had spent his life preparing for war, but he had never imagined himself at the center of something this vast. Humanity had fought for survival, but now they were being asked to lead a revolution. "We understand what Earth has done," Thalen continued. "But we must act before the Dominion recovers. We propose a unified defense network, an alliance of all those who have suffered under their rule. A single, coordinated force that will not only protect Earth, but strike at the Dominion before they can regroup." Kade, seated beside Voss, crossed her arms. "You're talking about turning the fight into a full-scale war." Thalen gave a slow nod. "Yes, the Dominion will not allow this defeat to stand. They will return with everything they have left. If we do not strike first, we will be fighting them on our own soil again." Voss exchanged a glance with Kade. She had been right. Earth had already sent a message across the stars. The Dominion was no longer untouchable. The humans had taken them down twice, and now the galaxy was watching, waiting to see if Earth would lead the charge or retreat into isolation. The Tharn chieftain, Varnak leaned forward in his projection. His feline features were sharp with barely contained aggression. "We have lived as exiles for too long. The Dominion has hunted us, crushed our uprisings, and scattered our people across the stars. But now we see a chance to end their rule. We will fight. We will bleed. But we will not run." Voss nodded slowly. "Then we strike before they can regroup." A chorus of agreement rippled through the gathered leaders. The Syrak had already begun deploying their energy web shielding technology across Earth's orbital defenses, creating a network that could disrupt Dominion targeting systems. The Tharn had mobilized their assault cruisers, their pilots eager to avenge centuries of oppression. The Ilari, a species known for their mastery of cyber warfare, offered their expertise in data manipulation and strategic infiltration. The Virex, a biomechanical race long enslaved by the Dominion's war machine, had turned their knowledge of Dominion ship design into a weapon, crafting countermeasures that could cripple their enemies from within. The Dominion had underestimated Earth once. They had believed their technology, their sheer military might, would make them untouchable. But now, Earth had something far more dangerous than weapons. They had allies. They had a coalition that had spent centuries waiting for a spark. And now, that spark had ignited a firestorm. Kade tapped a command, and the holographic display shifted to show the Dominion's core worlds. The once impenetrable heart of their empire was now vulnerable. Their fleets were in disarray, their command structure fractured. The humans had not just defended their planet, they had shattered the Dominion's myth of invincibility. And now, the galaxy was ready to finish what they had started. Voss straightened, his voice firm. "Then we make them bleed for every kilometer they take. We don't just defend Earth, we take the fight to them. We show them that the galaxy has changed." The leaders of the Allied resistance nodded in unison. The Dominion had spent centuries ruling through fear, but fear was a weapon that could be turned against them. And now the humans were not just warriors. They were revolutionaries. The galaxy had barely begun to process Earth's unprecedented victory when the Dominion responded with a fury unlike anything seen before. The Warbringer fleet had been a devastating force, but it was only the beginning. Now, the Dominion's core navy was mobilized, a vast armada of battlecruisers, dreadnoughts, and carrier swarms that stretched across the void like a wall of steel and fire. This was not an invasion. It was an extermination. Commander Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the IAD Defiant, Earth's flagship, watching the Dominion's fleet amass at the edge of the system. The sheer scale of the armada was enough to make even the most seasoned officers hesitate. The Dominion had learned from their previous defeats, and this time, they would not underestimate the humans. Their fleet was tightly organized, its formations designed to crush any attempt at deception or sabotage. And at its center loomed the Dominion's supreme warlord, the embodiment of their wrath, Karzan, the Bloodthorn Sovereign. Karzan's transmission crackled through the Defiant's comms, his voice a deep, guttural growl that carried the weight of centuries of conquest. "You have defied the Dominion twice, human. You have spilled the blood of our warriors, shattered our fleets, and insulted our supremacy. But now your defiance ends. We will not send scouts this time. We will not test your defenses. We will erase your world from existence." Voss met the warlord's gaze on the screen, his expression unflinching. "Big words, Karzan, but your fleets have fallen before. You think this one will be different?" Karzan's crimson eyes burned with contempt. "You were a stain we underestimated. Now, we will crush you with the full might of the Dominion. Your planet will burn. Your people will be scattered. And the galaxy will see what happens to those who dare to stand against us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving only the tactical display of the Dominion's fleet. The war room was silent for a moment, before Tara Kade's voice cut through the tension. "They're not bluffing. This is everything they've got left." Voss exhaled sharply. He knew the Dominion would not stop after 2 defeats, but he had not expected them to throw their entire navy at Earth. Their losses had weakened them, but they had learned. Their formations were tighter, and their command structure was decentralized to prevent another AI-based sabotage. They would not fall for the same tricks twice. "We need to change the game," Kade muttered, her fingers flying over the console. "If we fight them head-on, they'll crush us. We need to make them think they're winning before we take them apart." Voss nodded slowly. The Dominion was coming with overwhelming force, expecting Earth to break under the weight of it. But they had underestimated one crucial factor: human adaptability. Earth had spent the last few weeks preparing for this moment, integrating alien technology into their defenses, refining their tactics, and setting the stage for a battle unlike any the Dominion had ever faced. Kade turned to him, her smirk returning. "We have a plan, and we're not fighting alone this time." Voss gave a grim smile. "Then let's make sure the Dominion remembers this war for the rest of time." The battle was coming, and this time, Earth was ready. As the Dominion's fleet collapsed in the void, its once mighty warships reduced to burning wreckage, Earth's defenders stood victorious. The ID Defiant drifted in the silence of space, its crew battered but unbroken. Across the command deck, officers monitored the last fleeing Dominion vessels, ensuring that none escaped to regroup. The war was not yet over, but the turning point had arrived. Commander Elias Voss exhaled slowly, his grip tightening on the railing as he surveyed the battlefield. The Dominion had underestimated them, and had believed that Earth was a primitive world, ripe for conquest. But humanity had proven otherwise. They had fought not with sheer force, but with strategy, with ingenuity, and with an unyielding will to survive. And now, the Dominion's fleets were broken, their command structure in ruins. "Status report," Voss ordered. Kade's voice crackled over the comms. "We've neutralized the main fleet. Most of their ships are destroyed or crippled. The ones that ran won't make it far. Our fighters are mopping up the stragglers." She hesitated before adding, "We did it, Elias. We really did it." The war room erupted in cheers, but Voss remained still. He had seen too many battles end in temporary victories, too many enemies retreat only to return with greater force. This was not just about Earth anymore. The Dominion had been the galaxy's most feared power, its fleets striking fear into every species that had suffered under its rule. Now that fear had been shattered, and the galaxy knew it. Across the stars, Earth's victory broadcasts spread like wildfire. The Syrak Collective, the Tharn Enclave, the Ilari Concord, and the Virax Remnant all received the signal. Worlds that had lived under the Dominion's oppression for centuries now saw a path forward. The humans had not only defended their home, they had given the galaxy a reason to hope. A transmission blinked on the main console. Ambassador Thalin of the Syrak appeared on the screen, his violet skin glowing faintly in the dim light. His expression was unreadable, but his words carried the weight of history. "Commander Voss," Thalin said, his voice steady. "The Dominion's core worlds are in chaos. Their noble houses are turning on each other, their military leadership fractured. The message you sent has ignited a war that will not end with Earth." Voss nodded. "Then the Dominion's rule is over." Thalin hesitated before speaking again. "The Allied resistance has convened. We are forming a unified defense network, a coalition of species that will ensure the Dominion never rises again. Earth is at the heart of this alliance. We are calling you the founding member." Voss felt the weight of those words settle over him. For so long, Earth had been an isolated world, a planet that had fought to survive against threats beyond its understanding. Now, they were not just survivors. They were leaders. "Earth's priority will always be its own people," Voss replied carefully. "But if we can help forge a new era for the galaxy, we will stand with you." Thalin gave a slow nod, a flicker of something like respect in his glowing eyes. "Then we will not forget what you have done. The Dominion ruled through fear, through the belief that no one could stand against them. You proved them wrong. And now the galaxy is rising with you." The transmission ended, leaving Voss alone with his thoughts. He turned to the viewport, watching as Earth's defenders pulled the last of the Dominion wreckage into orbit. Salvage drones moved through the debris field, extracting what technology they could. It would not be easy to integrate Dominion systems into Earth's own, But it was not about copying their enemies. It was about understanding them, about ensuring that Earth would never again be caught off guard. Kade entered the bridge, her usual smirk tempered by exhaustion. "So," she said, leaning against the console, "what now? Do we start building a galactic empire of our own?" Voss let out a dry chuckle. "Not quite. We've spent our entire history fighting to survive. Now, we need to make sure the galaxy doesn't fall into the same cycle of conquest and oppression." Kade raised an eyebrow. "You mean we're not just going to let the Dominion collapse and let the rest of the galaxy sort itself out?" Voss turned to face her, his gaze steady. "No, we showed them that the Dominion could be broken. Now, it's up to them to decide what comes next. But we're not stepping back in isolation. We've proven that Earth is not a prize to be taken. We are not prey. We are warriors, and we will make damn sure the galaxy never forgets it." Kade grinned. "That's more like it." Outside, the stars burned cold and distant, but Earth's light shone brighter than ever. The battle had been won, but the war for the galaxy had only just begun. And for the first time in history, humanity was not just surviving. They were leading.